Okay, and now it's time to move on to our discussion of our Santa Monica City ballot measures. We have quite a few ballot measures this year, and moderating this part of the evening will be our own Melissa Goodman.
Excellent. Thanks, John. Hi, everybody. If I could lead you all in a stretch right now, I would. I know I need one. So feel free to turn off your video and do that if you need to. I'm going to try to move us along. It has been a long night, so I'm just going to tell you what we're doing here. We will have yes, no arguments for each local measure. We'll largely go in the order that they are listed on the election website, plus the SMC bond measure. With one exception, I had to move some things around given the timing shifts. Each side, yes, no, will have 2 minutes and a 30-second rebuttal. So it's going to be pretty chop. For some measures that had official arguments filed, we do have a speaker lined up for each side. But for some measures that didn't have that, we do actually have space where we don't always have a speaker lined up for a particular position. So when that happens, we will open the opportunity for a member to speak on that side, on the no side, if someone wants to. Just one person, we're keeping it even, one person per side for each measure. Patricia's actually going to be co-facilitating with me so that I can keep the flow going and I can help with time. And Patricia will help with tech and will be the one to monitor hands and call on people when we have those moments, because I can't see all the hands and do all the things. So thank you, Patricia, in advance for helping me with that. All right, I'm going to dive in. And I really greatly thank our presenters for their patience during the debate. So thank you. I am going to start with Measure CS, which is the transient occupancy tax. And we're going to start with the yes side and hear from Councilmember Gleam Davis. Hi, Gleam. Thank you.
Hi. Hi, good evening, everyone, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about Measure CS. I know you've had a long evening. I'll try and be brief. So as you all know, the transient occupancy tax is a tax that's tacked on to hotel room rates when we have tourists who come and stay in our hotels. It's not typically paid by residents or by businesses. This particular measure, CS, would increase the city's TOT rate from 14% to 15% for hotels, but to 17% for home shares. The proposed increase is comparable with neighboring cities such as Beverly Hills and other destination cities. So we're not getting out over our skis on this one. It's calculated by multiplying the applicable tax rate by total room charges. So in Santa Monica, it can generate up to $4 million or maybe even more, given that we have some high-end hotels here in town. Although it is a general revenue measure, it's the City Council's intent in putting it on the ballot to use the money raised if the tax passes for several things. First, to improve 911 emergency services, including response times, to expand the police presence in downtown Santa Monica, the pier, and the beach areas, and to free up resources to increase neighborhood patrols and improve public safety in residential areas. Two, to expand the city homeless liaison program to 7 days a week. It currently only operates 5 days a week. 3, to expand outreach and provide 24/7 intake services for people experiencing homelessness and behavioral health issues, giving us more opportunities to divert people off our streets and into necessary situations that provide services. And finally, to help prevent crime and enhance safety in Santa Monica neighborhoods by allowing additional police patrols. So it's a general revenue measure, but that is the City Council's intent in putting it on the ballot. And if you have any questions, there was no argument filed against it, so I don't know if anyone will be speaking against it.
Thank you, Gleam, and right on time. This is actually one where we're going to open it up to the membership and see if anyone does want to raise their hand to speak against.
And if you could use your
oh yes, please use the electronic.
Yeah, if you use your electronic, and you're more likely to be seen. Thank you. And let me look at the second screen. Melissa, I do not see anyone raising their hand. So
okay.
Thank you, Gleam. That was perfect timing and a really good description.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thanks. Excellent. We are going to move next to Measure PB. And we're going to hear first from the yes side from Councilmember Kristen McGowan.
Oh, hi. Hey, hi, everyone. Hi. Let me step into the light here. Hang on one sec. Okay, so this is a very simple one, so I will not take up the full 2 minutes. So this is, okay, here we go. So this is just about aligning our personnel board with the requirements of some of our other boards and commissions to include residency in Santa Monica or Los Angeles County, and who are either employed full-time within the city or who own real property in the city, or if they've been issued a business license by the city. And this was largely because of struggles to find people to sit on the personnel board. And so we really had to expand the scope of what types of applicants were allowed. So we hope that the Dem Club will support this ballot measure, and it'll also reduce the term limit to 4 years. So pretty straightforward. Hope to have your support. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And this is the last one for a little bit. This will be true of the last two as well, but this is one where we also open it up to the membership. If anybody would like to speak against, you are welcome to raise your electronic hand, and Patricia will be able to see you.
I do not see anyone, Melissa.
All right. I love a good debate, but I also like when it moves along. So thank you. Thank you, Kristen. Okay, we are next up in the order of the ballot measure is that we are going to measure GS next. This one, we do have two speakers. For the yes side, I believe we'll be hearing from Mike Soloff, if that has changed. Excellent. Welcome.
May I begin? 6 months ago, SMDC President John Katz, Mayor Sue Himmelrich, and I asked you to vote to support the petition drive to place GS on the ballot. You did, and more than 10,000 Santa Monicans then signed those petitions. Now we ask that you vote to endorse GS, just as the LA County Democratic Party voted to do last night. GS should raise an average of about $50 million per year by increasing the transfer tax only on sales of property worth $8 million or more.
LACDP endorsement.
Over the last decade, only an average of 30 such sales occurred each year, and more than 80% of those were commercial or apartment buildings. GS directs that these new funds go to making 3 critical investments in our community and its values. First, GS will provide at least $10 million per year to keep our public schools excellent. Second, GS should provide $10 to $20 million per year as needed for ongoing and emergency rent subsidy to the more than 6,000 Santa Monica households who HUD says are both lower income and pay more than half of their limited income for rent and utilities. Many of these severely rent-burdened households are long-term senior renters and families with children. GS will throw a lifeline to our struggling neighbors who need it now in these inflationary times more than ever. Third, GS should provide $20 million or more per year to create our fair share of new affordable housing through acquisition rehab of existing buildings and new construction. This will relieve overcrowding among existing lower income Santa Monicans, allow for a robust expansion of the right to return program for those, generally persons of color, who were displaced by the 10 freeway and the Civic Center and their descendants, and allow our lower wage hotel, restaurant, and retail workers who generate the TOT and sales taxes that largely fund the city to live where they work. These are all Santa Monica values and democratic values. Please endorse GS.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And next, for the no side, we're going to hear from Neil Carey. Neil, thanks for joining us and hanging in. And then each of you will get 30 seconds rebuttal after that.
Thank you. The 6 other council members felt it was necessary to put a countermeasure to measure GS on the ballot because GS is flawed and does not address many of the needs of the city and of the residents in the city. Many of the major concerns of our residents and needs, as I said, were not addressed or helped by GS. Examples are public safety. It does not help with the homeless problem, especially in downtown, which presently hurts the tourism business, which is vital to our city. It does not deal with or provide funds for the cleaning up the city, which again is a real problem for the tourism industry. It does not restore or expand any of the needed critical services like after-school programs and programs for at-risk youth. It also, right now, we have a shortage of playing fields and open space, and like Memorial Park and the Airport Park. Plans have been approved, but there's no money to build it, and this does nothing to help that situation. It will increase the cost of development, which could lead to higher rents and drive out many of our small businesses, which is really hurting the image of the city. And there's no sunset. And so if GS turns out not to be beneficial, this will keep going on and there's no incentive to look at it. And then there's no carve out for nonprofits, and there's a number of other issues. I just don't have the time to cover it, but it's for all of those reasons that GS will be harmful to our city, and it's not what the city needs or the residents want.
Thank you very much, Neil. Mike, I'm going to go back to you for 30 seconds.
Thank you. Well, 10,000 Santa Monicans believe that GS is something important that we need because they signed petitions to put it on the ballot. So I'll put that out there against anybody else. And the reason they do that is because they believe in a city that's inclusive, both in terms of economic diversity, that cares about our struggling neighbors and wants to do something for them, and that we need to generate a long-term ongoing investment in those critical aspects of our community, including our schools. So yes, it doesn't address little short-term things that the cities already has. You heard about Measure CS, and there are other measures to deal with. This is about a long-term investment in inclusive Santa Monica and great schools for our kids.
Thanks, Mike. Neil, going to you for the final word for 30 seconds.
Okay, first of all, it's not little things that are temporary. One of the problems, again, with GS is that the money in cases of emergencies, we saw with the pandemic, where the city desperately needed funds, there's no mechanism to temporarily get some of the funds that the city may need if we have another pandemic. And finally, the fact that 10,000 people signed a petition does not, clearly, we all know with petitions, especially if someone is told, would you like to sign this petition because it's going to create funds for the schools or for affordable housing, they'll sign it. But because people sign a petition, it absolutely does not demonstrate that 10,000 people, once they know what's in GS, supports it. And that is not a reason or to say that this should be approved.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you all for that good discussion. This is a lot of these measures. I wish we had a whole hour, but thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on next to Measure DT and in DTS, which we are doing together. We're going to hear first from Councilmember Phil Brock.
Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here. Want to talk to you a little bit about our needs since the start of the pandemic. Our budget was cut by over 150 million. We had to lay off approximately 400 staff members. We're still not back. Our libraries are not completely open. You know that I fought just to get 1 year of after-school care in our elementary schools. We have had problems over and over again. So my transfer tax, our transfer tax, the residents' transfer tax is pretty simple. We provide full funding for the next decade to keep our elementary school campuses open after school at no charge. We add another homeless liaison team to the Santa Monica Police Department that'll specialize in helping those in need nights and weekends. We will make sure that crossing guards, which were one of the first things to be cut during the pandemic, will not be cut again for the next decade. The reason I say the next decade is because our tax expires in a decade. I do not believe in lifetime taxes for anything. That's my personal belief. And I believe residents should always have the chance to come back. It will fund another unit for the community response unit. So they're also on weekends, helping people in need. $7 million of our measure will also be subsidies to low-income tenants who need that help right now. And in addition to that, very importantly, and I've been fighting for this on the city council, we need our libraries open, period, for our children, for our teens, for our seniors. So I'm talking about, yes, someone else said the small needs of people right now. They're not small to our residents. They are needed by our residents now. This tax is $25 per thousand, over 8 million. And in addition to that, I need to let you know, and I see, Patricia, you want me to stop, I know. Really quickly, that tax.
You'll still have rebuttal time.
Okay,
So
it has exemption.
You'll have that.
All right.
John, we didn't actually talk about whether you need me to time, because John will be up next.
Do you mind putting 2 minutes on?
I do not.
Okay, thanks.
I'm gonna start it right now. Thank
Okay,
you, Phil.
so I was really honored to be part of Measure GS, which I've been working on with Mayor Himmelrich and Mike Soloff for the last several months. And I'm really proud of it because over the last 12 years that I've been working in Santa Monica politics, I've seen over and over again, the top issue that people want us to address is housing and homelessness. And this is a measure that is designed to do exactly that. Unlike that, Measure DT, which I'm talking about tonight, was put onto the ballot to make sure that our Measure GS could not pass. Because they're both property transfer taxes, only one of these two measures can possibly pass, even if both of them get the requisite 50% of the vote. Whichever one gets more votes will pass. So this was put on intentionally, and Phil Brock knows this because he tweeted about it before it went to the ballot, that he needed that he knew that he wouldn't be able to defeat Measure GS unless they put a countermeasure on. So Phil and the Change Slate teamed up with wealthy real estate interests to put this countermeasure on the ballot because they know that that's the only way that they would be able to stop our measure from actually passing. And as I've explained at council, if we don't pass Measure GS, then developers will be able to go in using the 10% inclusionary rate that they've done for years. And in order to build the 6,000 units that we're required to build by RENA, we'll have to build 60,000 units. And that is something that really would decimate the character of Santa Monica. So what I'm seeing is you have some candidates who support no growth and some and working together with the developers who want a lot of growth. And neither of those sides really want to see true affordable housing being built in this city. And that's what Measure GS does. And Measure DT, developer trick, was put on the ballot to stop Measure GS. Thank you.
And there's the timer. Thank you, John. Councilmember Brock, I'm going back to you for rebuttal. And I will put, I'm a little slow with my phone. I will put 30 seconds on now.
Okay, so first, has a rebuttal to the people who think that the measure that I'm supporting is the developer measure. I will state as strong as I can that developers will vote no on both. Ours is not a developer measure. And my understanding is developers will vote against all of these. Developers will try and put on a campaign to defeat both of these. I'm looking at residents here now. How do we help residents? This is all right, I'll stop.
Okay, thank you. Very short. John, you have 30 seconds. And I'm going to start it now.
At the city council meeting where Measure DT was put on the ballot, representatives from the developers came to speak in public comment and said how great this Measure DT was, how much they wanted to see it on the ballot. Earlier, Phil called his ballot measure the residents initiative. Really, ours is literally a citizens initiative because 10,000 Santa Monicans signed it in order for it to be placed on the ballot. And Phil's Measure DT was only placed on the ballot by city council members.
And that's time. Thank you. Thank you both. 30 seconds is hard. I appreciate you both. All right. This is a lot of information, everyone, but we're moving on. The next grouping we're going to do RC and then we're going to do EM. So for RC, we have two speakers up. First, for the yes side, we're going to hear from Carolyn Terosas.
Hi, everyone. Carolyn again. We have placed RC on the ballot, like was mentioned during the debate, to preserve the character, the integrity, the inclusivity of Santa Monica. Why is that? What happened this year is that we saw unprecedented inflation. Unprecedented so much so that our 6% rent increase cap was triggered for the first time since this cap was put in place. And we saw that this was an untenable rent increase for many of our tenants living in their homes, and we knew we had to act. So this measure does a couple of things. First of all, it does place on the ballot at a amendment to our general adjustment so that it may be no greater than 3% for all rent controlled units. Additionally, because we know that this could only be applied on a going forward basis, it actually does some averaging, which I'm happy to go into, but it's a little bit detailed, to ensure that if folks are if landlords are charging the full 6% from now until February 1st, 2023, that averages down to close to 0% or 0.8% of the maximum allowable rent, so that there would be a overall 3% rent adjustment for the 22-23 term, and then 23 on the 23-24 term for the general adjustment, it may be no greater than 3%. Additionally, we looked at, and I just wanted to say that this makes us commensurate with other jurisdictions across the state. We were seeing one of the highest rent increases in the state. Culver City put a measure to cap rent increase at 4%. As we talked about, City of LA has been at 0%. Oakland already capped their rent increase at 3% in the face of rising inflation. Secondly, there's another smaller provision in Measure RC that a landlord who's doing an owner occupancy move-in must move in to the unit within within 60 days after a tenant vacates rather than 30 days. And they must use that as their primary residence for at least 2 years, unless extenuating circumstances exist. This also puts us commensurate with other jurisdictions to make sure that we aren't abusing the owner occupancy move-in exception.
Thanks, Carolyn. You'll have a rebuttal. All right. And next up on the no side, we have Matt Williams. Welcome, Matt. Thanks for your patience hanging in.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me come and speak to the other side. First off, it's very impressive to see, and it's my first time being on this, to see the care for the people of Santa Monica. You know, our landlords were on the front lines with the evictions, not the evictions, excuse me, they aren't. We're actually way below the national and state average, but our landlords were on the front lines when it came to COVID. When tenants called saying, hey, we need help, our Santa Monica landlords were willing to dig into their own pockets and pay for repairs and maintenance, even though rents weren't coming in. Now, after 2 years, there's a chance where landlords can recoup not only past losses, but keep up with inflation, which is over 10%. We see that inflation with gas prices. We see that inflation with vendors. A water heater now went from $1,000 to about $1,300. Wall furnaces, I've seen some people walking in their units with wall furnaces, have gone from $1,500 to $2,000. We need those dollars to keep our housing stock for our Santa Monica residents in line. Number two, the laws are already effective. The state was 10%, Santa Monica 6%. The effective increase based off the average income in Santa Monica, $72,000, was 2.33%. So our laws have already been effective at helping keep these rates low. We need to help our mom and pops keep their buildings. Now, this is just minimal. A rent control unit may only make $50,000 a year. And when you factor in expenses, the owner is making less than a street vendor in terms of profit to help take home and cover a sewer line that could be $12,000. So vote no on this measure because our Santa Monica owners do care. They were on the front lines and they need the financial support to succeed. And I won't even take the extra 20 seconds.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that, but you'll get a rebuttal time.
Thank you.
Carolyn, I'm going to you.
Yeah, I just want to say this concept, we love our housing providers, but the concept that they had suffered a huge loss is a fallacy. The state and the city paid over $40 million directly to our landlords for tenants who were unable to pay during the pandemic. The deal that was struck with the state was that landlords were to receive 100% of back rent that was applied for. And so landlords in Santa Monica were made whole. I also want to be clear that many renters did not receive a 6% increase for their cost of living adjustment in their salary. But this de facto is giving our housing providers a 6% increase. 3% is reasonable, 3% is commensurate with what we're seeing across the state. And I also want to be clear that 70% of our renters are at market rate tenancies. Landlords can apply for rent increase petitions if they're not making a fair return. We've always had
Carolyn,
that.
your time is up. Thank you.
Matt, I'll give you a rebuttal.
First off, I would like to see anybody in this room that would be willing to defer their income for 2 years and have to pay out of their own pocket to compensate. To say that owners were made whole, yes, 2 years later, and once they were done, but they had to pay out of pocket that entire time. That is not a fallacy. Those were the investments our landlords made into our tenants. Number two, if we are at 24%, if we are saying that our renters already are in line in terms of market rate, the increase is only 2.3% at market. It's not 6%. These are just minimal increases to help owners cover their costs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, vote no.
Thanks. Thanks to you both. And Matt, we'll see you again on the next one in a second. But thank you very much. And thank you, Carolyn. I am going next to Measure EM. And we're going to hear first from Anastasia Foster on the yes side.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me and allowing me to speak about Measure EM, a partner measure to measure RC. We have never seen anything like what we've seen for the last 2 years globally. Usually a tragedy affects one state, one area, one region, one country. This affects every single person on earth. When this happened, other jurisdictions around us were able to react quickly and coherently, and they quickly lowered or froze rents. Los Angeles, West Hollywood, Berkeley, San Francisco, Oakland, jurisdictions all up and down the coast were able to mitigate the impacts to renters in the immediate term. And I will further say that many of these freezes or reductions in increases were challenged in court unsuccessfully. What we are looking to do with Measure EM is to give ourselves at the rent board, not a blank check, but that this rent board or any rent board in the future would have the opportunity to revisit rent levels in the event of a true emergency declared by the President of the United States, the governor, the Department of Public Health, the city manager or director of emergency services. This is not a blank check. It's not to be taken lightly. And you can imagine there might be scenarios such as an earthquake, a natural disaster, wildfires, God forbid, a terrorist attack, something that would disrupt the city and necessitate a temporary easing of increases. We don't anticipate this to be needed probably anytime soon, but we don't ever want to be caught unaware the way we were and have to jump through so many hoops to provide necessary relief. So please support Measure EM by voting yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Matt, we have Matt for both. So hello, welcome back.
Thank you again. I just want to start Measure EM. They talk about how the other cities we're able to enact and do these things. What isn't mentioned is it's a flawed measure. Number one, there are going to be takings claims bought by Jeff Palmer in the city of Los Angeles. Beverly Hills is looking for dollars for another takings claim. I would rather protect our city from having legal liability by giving the city the ability to arbitrarily decide to reduce rents could expose us to those takings. Number two, the 1805 ordinance allows for owners to ask for rent increases based off shortfalls in debt service coverage ratios that are unintended. And if that occurs, and let's say there's another rent freeze, any owner can ask for a rent increase because they aren't able to cover their debt service, which is something our owners didn't do during COVID out of good faith with their tenants. It's allowed in 1805. So there's the flaw in this issue is not enough stakeholders were brought to the table to craft legislation that could better help the city counter these risks. I'm opposed to this measure because there's no control. It's an unelected person who gets to decide what's going on. Second, we already have solutions in place. 1805 or section 1805 allows tenants to go ask for rent reductions. We talk about needing EM, we talk about RC, we need all this. How many tenants have actually gone and asked for rent reductions, have gone to the city and done that? No, that wasn't even brought up as a reason to enact both these measures. If our tenants really need these measures, it's good politics, but bad policy. Good politics, but bad policy. If stakeholders are brought to the table to craft these measures, we can come up with something that is more proactive and better works for our community. Thank you very much. Vote no.
Thank you. Anastasia, you have rebuttal time.
Thank you. And I appreciate Mr. Williams' positions. I do understand that landowners and landlords are in the business to get as much return as they can on their investment. But our community is in the business of protecting the majority of our residents and preserving the character of our entire community's sense of neighborly survival. I mean, if our teachers and our firefighters are presented with this horrible situation again, there's nothing arbitrary about the action that this or a future rent board would take. It's very simple. There is a public process and due process would play out within the law. And I urge you to vote yes on EM. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not even asking for profit. We're just trying to maintain the habitability of our units and to have the cash flow in we need for increasing costs. $2,000 to switch a wall furnace that used to cost $15,000, that's $500. To call LA Hydrojet out to snake the toilet went from $65 to $93. To put a measure in place that says, hey, you can't collect this, owners need that money just to provide. Our housing owners are actually the affordable housing providers in our community. You don't have to spend $800,000 to build an affordable home when you have RSO units. RSO owners need the money to maintain our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks to both of you. Appreciate it. All right, we got 2 more to go. We're almost there. We are going next to the SMC bond measure. And heads up, this is one where we will go to the floor for the no position. But on yes, we have with us Louise Jaffe. Hello, Louise.
Hello. Okay. Santa Monica College is recognized as one of the very best community colleges in the nation. #1 in the state in transfers to UC for more than 30 years. We're proud to provide excellent, accessible, and affordable education to our community, and we have a laser focus on equity, diversity, and inclusion. 50% of Santa Monica high school students attend SMC, and thousands of Santa Monica and Malibu students have used SMC to affordably complete their first 2 years of college. Today, SMC faces new challenges and opportunities that Measure SMC addresses. So what will Measure SMC do? It will replace and upgrade obsolete classrooms and instructional labs, improve instructional spaces for in-demand career training programs, like our respiratory therapy class program, provide technology and facilities for hybrid learning so students can access their class their way, either on campus or remotely, whatever works best for them. Upgrade the college's Veteran Success Center, and so important at this moment in time, Measure SMC will provide housing for SMC's unhoused and qualified low-income students with priority for local families and individuals. In short, Measure SMC will provide educational benefits to help Santa Monica College give our local students the bright future they deserve. Measure SMC has been endorsed by SMER, by Community for Excellent Public Schools, Santa Monica and the Malibu Chambers of Commerce, and Santa Monica Forward. It's also supported by, of course, the Santa Monica College Board of Trustees, Ben Allen, Richard Bloom, Sheila Kuehl, Mayor Sue Himmelrich, School Board President Maria Leon Vasquez, and Rent Control Board Chair Steve Duran, to name just a few. Remember, education is the foundation of a healthy democracy. I urge the Democratic Club to endorse Measure SMC. And I'd also like all of you to check out the website, vote yes for smc.com.
Thank you, Louise. Appreciate it. Right on time. If anyone from the floor would like to speak against Measure C, please raise your electronic hand so Patricia can see them.
Melissa, I am not seeing anybody raise their electronic hands, and I think we should go on to the
Okay.
next measure.
The next and the last. Hard time limit. All right, everyone, the last one up, we are going to measure HMP, which is the cannabis business tax, and Dominic Fay is with us to talk about this. Hi, Dom.
Hey, everyone. I'll bring this home with a straightforward measure here in Measure HMP. You may know it as the cannabis business tax. Quoting directly from the tax of the title and purpose, the purpose is to adopt a business license tax for general revenue purposes pursuant to government code. For businesses that engage in cannabis businesses that engage in business in Santa Monica. This tax measure will not be have any kind of formality and approval in setting up recreational marijuana storefronts. That will have to be pursued at a later date. This is just to set the tax framework. As to some reasoning for us supporting this, I think we've been looking a lot at the changing landscape in the way that marijuana is seen. There are things like access to marijuana that has been an issue, and obviously marijuana has affected different groups more than others, especially when it comes to the criminalization of marijuana. So in this, we see this as a step forward for the city to establish the tax framework. I think all of us can anticipate things at the federal level being discussed and coming around. And of course, the city of Santa Monica still has the ability to, lobby the city council to prevent storefronts of a recreational type opening in the future. This tax measure would not formalize that approval. I'm sure many of you guys know more about this tax measure than me. So I won't lobby you too hard here to vote yes or no, just giving you some rationale on why we supported it and why we think it's a good thing to have in place.
Thank you, Dom. Right on time. Hang out with us just for a minute to see if we have anyone who would like to speak to the no side of HMP. Please raise your electronic hand so Patricia can see it.
I am not only not seeing an electronic hand, I did a quick flip to the other screen. I didn't see anyone waving either.
Excellent. Okay, well then that will be, and Dom, thank you for your efforts to join us. And that concludes our discussion. Thank you, everyone. It was lightning round, but we did it.
And John, do you have any post-program program?
Yeah, we're now going to go to part 2 of the city council debate for another 2 hours. No, thanks, everybody. Appreciate everyone coming tonight and hearing about all the ballot measures. And again, one last reminder that 2 weeks from tonight, we're going to first hear about the statewide ballot measures, similar format to what we just saw. And then the main event, which is the voting for all of the races for rent control board, college board, school board, city council, all the city ballot measures, all the county ballot measures, and all the state ballot measures. And because I know this is what most people are going to be tuning in for, we're going to be reviewing upcoming bylaws revisions. So be sure to tune in next 2 weeks from now, Wednesday, September 28th. Can't wait to see everybody. Can't wait to get our endorsements finalized, and we'll see you then. Have a great night.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Todd. Thank you,
A
everyone.
song, John?
Thank you.
Great coverage of
Thank you,
everything.
everyone.
Really well done.